Welcome in our community. This is the first ever course to be uploaded here. I'm going to teach you about all the methods and tools I found helpful to grow figure hands. I think there is going to be multiple parts to it, as it was a very lengthy process and I want to go deep in the explanations of every part of the hand, whether it's the thumb, the palm, the pinky pad, fingers and many other small muscles. I will also talk about the cheap alternatives and the more expensive ones. With that being said, let's start with all the ways to grow thumbs. So, I first ever started with the pompa training, which is simply pronation and rising, and it's also one of the simplest and more accessible ways to train hands. A lot of people have been confused on how this could grow hands, and the explanation is pretty simple. Those two are forearm exercises, but yet I found that holding the belt tight for a high amount of reps will really engage the thumb and put it through a lot of work, thus leading to hand gains. If you have a judo belt in a weight that you can tie to it, you are able to do this exercise. Here is how you put your hand through it for the pronation and for the rising. Concerning sets and reps, I started by doing a lot of volume and did 5 sets of 60 reps for each exercises, and of course doing this every day made me discover the best ways to engage the thumbs. So, the best way to do the pronation one is to do a thumb flexion every time you drive up. It will pump the thumb so bad with such a small change, it is incredible. And as for the rising, pinching the belt hard with your thumb will also engage it much more. You can either do that with a judo belt, like I've been doing for months, or with any kind of band if you don't have a belt or don't want to buy one. And I'll even admit that I prefer doing it with a band, as you can go through a much bigger range of motion without causing friction against your skin, like a judo belt would do. And if the band is small enough, you can even alternate positions and see what feels best for you. I of course still use the belt every day as it has its benefits, like allowing to go heavier and toughening the skin near the thumb, which we will touch on later in the video. But now you have 2 alternatives. Next, we've got the thumb war. This tool is pretty unique as it allows you to get a perfect stretch of the thumb muscle if doing full range of motion, and even works on pretty hard to target muscles at the back of the hand, which I will also talk about later on in the video. To use this tool, I recommend positioning it at elbow height or even slightly above them, as doing the opposite would put you in a disadvantageous position, and even put strain on your wrist. I don't go heavy on this for the same reason, as I don't want to put too much stress on my joints, and do 12 to 16 slow controlled reps, mainly to failure, or at least stop when I feel a huge burn in my thumbs. There are a few different ways to use it. You can either do a high amount of small reps at the bottom, do one hand at a time, or do static holds for more strength. Next, we've got a staple of my channel, which is none other than the rice bucket training. It is also one of the cheap tools on this list, as you only need a few kilos of rice and a bucket big enough to move your hands freely in. So first, we'll start with the lobster claw. Put your hand in the rice and start moving your thumb towards your fingers. I recommend going for your index and middle finger only, as the next exercise is the same thing, but going thumb to pinky instead, which gets significantly harder. It also allows you to work different parts of the thumb and develop more functional strength. So for the second one, move your thumb to your pinky. You'll see that this one is a killer. The pump gets so bad I can't even connect the 2 fingers anymore outside of the bucket, let alone during the exercise. The third one is gonna be deep reaches. Put your thumbs in the rice and focus on pushing them as far as you can, like shown on the clip. And the last one is the most effective for me. Do a pronation motion as you go down the rice and a supination motion as you go up and open your hand at the same time. It will target the entirety of the hand, whether it's the thumb, pinky pad, back of the hand and even your fingers. Be violent with it and go fast, this way you'll get a much better pump and much bigger fatigue. Usually the first 10 to 20 seconds don't feel bad, but once you start doing this for longer, you will feel your hands giving up and getting painfully sore. I actually counted how many thrusts I did once before stopping, and it was between 200 to 400 reps when I was really pushing it. When your hand can't take it anymore, alternate with the other one and do it for 3 to 4 sets. That's more than enough if doing the other exercises. Next, we've got the rubber ball. This tool is super cheap and gives really good pumps. It doesn't have a huge resistance, so I do high reps like pretty much all the other tools I talked about. I do about 50 reps, then alternate with the other hand. When I use it, I can go up to 8 sets until my repetitions get dirty. Of course, try to take it to failure or close to it. When I can barely move my thumb, I know it's time to change. You can either pinch it with the whole surface of your thumb or with the tip of it. They give a different feeling each, so I recommend to try it for yourself and do a bit of both. Next, we've got hand grippers. For this exercise, I recommend using a low resistance one, and you will want to pinch it like I'm doing on those clips. Any kind of gripper works for this, whether the curved one or the more straight ones. I think that doing 5 sets to failure is pretty good. You can of course do more, but as a baseline, it will give you a good pump in my opinion. As for the rest, you can just alternate with both hands, then wait about a minute when you're done with both and start again. Alright, now that we're done with the thumb pad, there is another thumb muscle that you can grow, which is the one between the thumb and index. To train it, I place the gripper in between the thumb and index and do static holds like this for about 30 seconds. Of course, it will depend on the resistance of your gripper, but try to make it complicated and take it close to failure. Another way to do it is to do reps like this. It works just as well. I like to alternate and once again take it around failure. You will see that after a few sets only, you really start feeling that muscle above your thumb. That's pretty much everything I do to develop thumb thickness. Now let's talk about how to develop the pinky pad. Having a thick pinky pad will make your hands look much larger, as there's a lot of room for gains in this area. The first machine we're gonna cover to train the pinky pads is the Bruce Lee machine. This tool is really efficient to target the hand muscles, as they get a lot of work when you're squeezing anything in your fist. I don't count the reps for this one, but just go to failure, while as you can see being pretty violent with it. The pumps and growth have been excellent when doing this, and I do it for minimum 4 sets. This machine is excellent, although on the more expensive side, but of course there are other alternatives that I do regularly, like wrist flexions that are much cheaper and easier to set up. So, doing wrist flexions, which are also known as cupping, will give you huge hand gains. I even think that this is one of the main reasons why arm wrestlers have such large hands, because they do a lot of those. To maximize the hand gains, we'll want to grab some thick handles or add thick grips to a normal handle. Go for a thumbless grip and start cupping while going for a deep stretch on the eccentric phase. I always feel my hand muscles getting destroyed and stretch in real time while doing that. It will not only pump your pinky pads and make them grow thicker, but also give you some extra thumb work, as they get engaged a lot with the thumbless grip and give them some more volume. I even found a nice technique when doing cupping with a dumbbell that will give your hands skin stretching pumps. So after you're done with your set, that you of course took to failure, you will want to do myo reps a few seconds after, but you will keep your hand on the dumbbell as you're resting. I usually wait 10 to 15 seconds between my set and the myo reps, then try to get 3 to 4 more reps. I don't know why, but whenever I do that, I can feel each and every one of my muscles fibers getting torn apart in my hands. It is really painful but efficient for some reason. You can either use a pulley or a dumbbell. As long as you add some thick grips to each, it will work wonders. Although I find it a bit more complicated to do the technique I just talked about with a pulley. Now, as you probably know, cupping is mainly a forearm exercise, which means that if you're gonna do it, your forearms are going to get a lot of growth and fatigue, as well as your hands, which might not be aligned to your goals. It is fine with me because I want to grow my forearms, but if you want to focus more on the hand growth only, the next exercise is what you need. So for this, you will once again need a hand gripper. Place it upside down in your hand and start closing it with your ring and pinky finger only. I also do sets of 50 reps on this exercise, which is around failure. It is kind of an uncomfortable position on the hand, and sometimes I have to stop early because I feel a little pain in a tendon, but nothing bad. I still get excellent pumps and growth from this exercise, and it's one of the best if you only want to target your pinky pad. Using hand grippers like intended is also an excellent way to grow them, but for this you will of course want to increase the intensity and get some high resistance ones. It's similar to the Bruce Lee machine, although the pumps feel different. I used to train with them daily at some point and did it randomly throughout the day without really having a routine. This is only a baseline. I think you should do more than that without really counting sets. Maybe while watching a video on YouTube and spamming reps, but once again, it is also gonna engage the forearms a lot, so you're gonna have to manage the fatigue and exercises you choose depending on your goals. Alright, now that we are done with the big muscles, we're gonna focus on the small ones on the back of your hands. They are pretty hard to notice at first, as they appear in the form of little bumps between your metacarpals. To develop them, you will want to use the thumb war once again and use an overhand grip, then focus on doing the reps by keeping your fingers straight and mainly closing it with your palms. I take most of my sets to failure for about 12 to 16 reps, and I think that 4 sets is pretty good for those small muscles, as they rarely get a workout dedicated to them. You should already feel them being sore the next day with this. I think that the action of closing your hands only with your palms is what activates them, so you could also use some kind of grip strength equipment and do static holds like this, which is gonna engage them a lot. You can see where all the pressure is going with my skin getting stretched there. Now in this part we will focus on how to toughen the area above the thumb. At some point in my growing figure hands journey, I had developed a huge and hard callus because of all the pronation I was doing and the friction that the Judo belt caused on my skin. Now I wouldn't recommend to go as far as me, as it can get painful if it cracks open and of course doesn't look good. But to achieve this you will want to use an arm wrestling strap to do your lifts or a Judo belt. Both work really well. I would say that this strap is a bit more painful as it has a smaller area of contact with your skin, which applies more pressure on one point. But it is a good tool to toughen the hands and of course get better at arm wrestling. And the Judo belt works wonders, as I've mainly used it throughout my journey. For this, repetition is key, so you will want to pronate every day so your hands can adapt, and it will also cause your thumb muscles to grow, as I said earlier. You can start with 3 sets of 60 reps a day with a light weight and work your way up to more volume and do like 5 sets a day over time. Now that we've talked about the hands, let's talk about the fingers. I don't think that you can grow your fingers with anything I just mentioned over a short period of time. It is something that you have to dedicate years to see results by working a manual job or doing climbing, at least multiple times a week. The only fingers I saw tangible results in are my thumbs, because of this ring. Before doing this routine, I was able to put it on all 5 of my fingers easily, but now it would be impossible for me to wear it on my thumbs as the bone structure of them actually got bigger. My other fingers also grew a bit thicker with all the training I do, of course, but the results are too slight to deserve a mention. So in my opinion, growing fingers is only possible if you're gonna do something manual every day for years, which is not really possible if you don't have a job that requires it. Alright, so now you may be confused about what exercises you should choose over all the ones I talked about and at what frequency you should train your hands. In this guide, I talk about all the tools and methods that help me, whether they were expensive or cheap, so you can choose what fits in your budget or have an idea on how to grow certain parts of the hands. I don't do everything I talked about every day, but rather pick a specific exercise and do it for that day. For example, one day I will use the thumb war and the next day use the rubber ball, or a bit of both the same day. I like to alternate and not stick to a singular tool or routine, but if you're getting started, you can definitely copy me and do pronation and rising every day, like I said earlier. It gave me tremendous results, and I only started using different tools here and there randomly after at least the day 100. What you should focus on is making sure to work out all the different parts of the hands, so the thumb, the pinky pad, and the small muscles at the back. You can train your hands every day as they recover really fast, just like your forearms, but if they're ever sore, consider taking a rest day. My ideal routine is having cupping and any kind of thumb workout in a day and repeat. You could even throw in the thumb war pinching I talked about for the muscles at the back of your hands, but honestly, I don't care much about them. The only day I would recommend not to do those exercises is when you have a back or any kind of pull day at the gym, as you could fatigue your forearms and hands and not get a good workout later because of that. And that's gonna be it for this course. Feel free to write posts if you have any questions, I will gladly answer them.